Well, thank you for that wonderful welcome. It is great to be here on this cross-party platform. Supporting Leave means leave, and putting our country first, and our country should always come above our party. We're here, as Richard has said, we shouldn't really be here. We had a clear vote to leave. We know that people knew what they wanted to vote for, even though we're being told that they were stupid, that they didn't know what they were voting for, that they were racists. You knew what you were voting for. We all knew what we were voting for, and we were voting to leave. And all those people out there protesting today, and those people in London who will be protesting, it's not really anymore a question about leave or remain. It's a question of being democratic or anti-democratic. And I get very angry when I see the London elite, the London establishment, making their views as if they know more than everyone else in the rest of the country. And they really should get out of London more and come to places like this. So we don't need, the message today is we don't need another vote. We just want to leave. Now, as a Labour MP, I am concerned that for those millions of Labour supporters and voters across the country, that many of them are now beginning to feel that they are being betrayed, not just by the government, but possibly by their own party. And that makes me very sad indeed. And I feel strongly that in the last election, the last general election, the manifesto of the Labour Party was very clear. We were going to stick to the referendum, honour the votes of the British people, leave the single market and leave the customs union. Very clear. So not only did we have all those people voting for the referendum, but we had at the general election the two main parties all supporting leaving and honouring the referendum. So there is no argument about it. And I don't feel at all lonely in the party, although I'm pretty alone in Parliament. We've got Frank Field and Graham Stringer and John Mann and Kelvin Hopkins and a few others. And remember, there are some MPs who did vote to remain, who are wanting to honour the referendum and who are going to ensure that we don't have a second referendum. But the problem is that there are some in my party and some in Parliament who are doing everything possible to make sure that we delay and delay and delay. And this latest idea of extending the transition has to be fought against. We must not allow that to happen. But I always remind people, and some of the slightly younger members of Parliament on my side of the House, I always try to remind them that people like myself and Frank Field and all the others are actually following in the footsteps of those people in our past history of the Labour movement, people like Hugh Gateskill, Peter Shore, Tony Benn, and of course one of my great heroines, Barbara Castle. Every one of them would still be involved in this if they were here today, because they understood way back in the early 70s what the common market was all about, what it was going to do to our country, what it was going to do to our democracy. And they knew then that Brussels would want to take more and more power away from us, and that's what they've done. We are the true Democrats in the country. The people who are out there calling for a second referendum, interestingly, it's the same people, isn't it, who first of all wanted us to join the euro, but also all those people who really have decided that they know best. I mean, we have people like Tony Blair coming from, and then we have Michael Heseltine, and then of course our favourite, Nick Clegg. And of course, Nick Clegg has now gone off to get a big job in the United States of America. Now, I think also we have to remind people when they say that Parliament, you know, has to be supreme on this. Parliament must make all these decisions, and that the people's vote didn't really matter. Of course, we saw all those treaties go through year after year in Parliament where we never ever got a vote. The original decision to go in, the accession treaty, we weren't asked, did we want to join the common market? Yes, we were asked 2 years later. But we weren't asked when we went in. We weren't asked, the people were not asked about the Maastricht Treaty, about the Single Market Act, about Amsterdam, about Nice, about Lisbon. Every single one of those went through, and without people having a say. So I think that this is, the referendum we did get was an absolutely crucial vote for the future of our country. And of course the EU thought, when they lost, and they lost because they thought we were going to vote to remain, they thought we would do what they've done in the past, have another referendum. That's what they've always done. The Republic of Ireland voted against the Lisbon Treaty, they had another referendum. In Holland, they voted against the treaty, they had another referendum. And they thought that we would do the same. But we are British, and we are not going to be doing that kind of thing. And the message really is that they cannot take us for granted. They may be taking the Prime Minister for granted, they may be taking the government for granted, but they won't take the people of this country for granted. Now, I just want to say a few words about Northern Ireland, because I come from there originally. I care deeply about Northern Ireland. And of course, it's now become the issue, the border issue has become the issue that has been built up to be this huge, huge, huge sticking point. First of all, we have to remind the government and remind everyone that Northern Ireland is an integral part of the United Kingdom, and we can never allow any part of it to have a different arrangement from the rest of the United Kingdom. And we have to remember and remind the Prime Minister, because she seems to have forgotten too, that the only reason there's ever been a hard border with infrastructure and cameras and police and so on was when we had a terrorist group called the Irish Republican Army who would be coming over and bringing over bombs and ammunition to blow up our British soldiers and our British police officers. That is why we had a hard border. And there was absolutely nothing in the Belfast Agreement, the Good Friday Agreement. One word, I think, about the border was mentioned. It was not part and an instrumental part of the Good Friday Agreement. But the idea that, you know, the Belfast Agreement only came about because of the EU is just such complete nonsense. And how can we get ourselves into a situation where we've now got the Taoiseach of the Republic of Ireland, Varadkar, actually saying, implying really that it's more important, you know, if we do something about the border, if there is any kind of border there, that the dissidents, the terrorists will come back. Well, I find that quite shocking, because he should be saying, we're going to take on these terrorists, we're going to take on these people, and we're not going to allow them to shape our policy, either of the Republic of Ireland or the United Kingdom. So I think the behaviour of the Irish government has been shocking. And I just had one message this week from someone in Northern Ireland, a young woman who sent me this message, and she'd seen some of the things that Varadkar had been saying. And she said, "Terrorists took my mother. Don't let them take my vote and that of 17 million more as well." And I think that sums it up. So, what can we do? Well, I think we have to be more confident. I think it's shocking the way everyone who's on the Remain side, and particularly those in the establishment, and of course the media. I mean, the media have not exactly been impartial, I think, on this issue. But I think it's shocking the way they have actually run the country down. The idea that somehow, as the 5th biggest economy in the world, we are not capable of running ourselves, of being independent. It is just unimaginable that some of those people that we have elected into power to run our country really feel that they would prefer to have other countries and a Brussels unelected bureaucracy running us. So I think we have to... We have to now fight back, and the fight back is beginning again. You know, we took democracy for granted. I took it for granted. I was thrilled, absolutely so thrilled when we won that referendum. I didn't expect it to be here. I didn't expect to have to fight to get what people had voted for in the biggest ever vote. And we have to now say, right across the country, that we're not going to allow this happen, that this is about democracy far, far more than about economics. The European Commission want to squeeze out democracy and take more and more control. We have to be confident, we have to make sure that our members of Parliament know what we think about this, and we have to go and see them, not just write letters. And we have to challenge all the doom and the gloom, and we have to actually challenge the government to recognise that the clock is ticking. But we're not afraid of the clock ticking, because we know that actually a no deal isn't coming off the cliff edge, as the media would like to portray it. A no deal is actually going on to World Trade Organization rules the way the vast majority of the rest of the world trade. So what is the problem? So we need a clean Brexit. We need to challenge all those moaners and remainers who feel that they can know better than the 17.4 million people. And we need to make sure all of you who are here, who are Labour supporters, make sure that under the leadership of our party, we will not renege on the referendum, and we will not say that we are going to give in to extra transition in getting rid of Article 50 and on gradually going to a situation where we will be half in, half out. That's not what we voted for, and we are not going to let it happen. Thank you.
Well done, Kate. Brilliant. Isn't she great, ladies and gentlemen? If only there were about another 600 MPs with her courage and her convictions. And we hear this nonsense about the People's March today and the People's Vote. Are we not people? Did we not have a People's Vote in 2016? I think we did. I think we won it.